We begin our journey in the quiet corners of history, where the familiar stories of kings, empires, and battles fade into whispers of secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. The past is often presented to us in neat lines of dates and events, but beneath that orderly surface lies a labyrinth of mysteries, long buried and carefully hidden. These are not merely stories of lost civilizations or forgotten rulers. They're the shadows of knowledge, ideas, and discoveries that challenge the understanding of their time. And yet, time, with its patient, unyielding march, has preserved fragments of these secrets, waiting for those willing to listen to the soft echoes of the past. Imagine a world where knowledge was considered dangerous, where certain truths were locked away not because they were unknown, but because they were forbidden. In these spaces, wisdom was intertwined with fear, power, and ritual. There were civilizations whose understanding of the stars, the elements, and even human consciousness seemed far ahead of what we thought possible. Their discoveries, their experiments, and their creations were cloaked in secrecy, passed down only through select hands, often through sacred texts or encoded symbols that have puzzled generations of scholars. Even now, we can catch glimpses of these forbidden truths, etched in a stone, hidden within cryptic manuscripts, or whispered through oral traditions preserved by the most careful of guardians. There is a particular kind of magic in the notion that some knowledge is not entirely lost, but deliberately concealed. Unlike the obvious remnants of history, ruins, artifacts, monuments, the most forbidden secrets often leave no clear trace. They are sensed rather than seen, felt rather than touched, existing at the edges of our understanding. As we embark on this exploration, it becomes clear that the past is not simply a series of events to be memorized. It is a living tapestry of light and shadow, of certainty and doubt, where each discovery raises new questions and each answer uncovers new mysteries. We step gently into this realm, mindful that every revelation comes with the weight of centuries of silence. Throughout the ages, some individuals or groups were chosen to guard these truths, often at great personal cost. They became keepers of wisdom, silent witnesses to knowledge that could inspire or terrify. In temples, hidden libraries, and underground chambers, they preserved fragments of a world that the majority could never see. And yet, even with the veil of secrecy, traces remained. Symbols carved into stones, strange alignments in architecture, and obscure references in ancient writings all serve as breadcrumbs leading to deeper understanding. These traces remind us that the pursuit of forbidden knowledge is both a perilous and profoundly human endeavor. It is a pursuit driven by curiosity, reverence, and the desire to understand the world beyond the visible. As we move forward, it is important to notice the contrast between what we know and what remains hidden. History, as it is taught in schools, offers comfort through clarity and repetition. But the shadows of forbidden knowledge challenge that clarity. They invite us to question the narratives we have inherited, to wonder what was erased, ignored, or misunderstood. There is a subtle thrill in this questioning, not the adrenaline of danger, but the quiet, almost meditative curiosity that nudges the mind to explore possibilities beyond the surface. It is a curiosity that does not demand immediate answers, but allows the imagination to linger, to roam through lost corridors of time, and to listen to the faint whispers of the past. In this exploration, there will be no need for haste. The mysteries we will uncover are patient, unfolding slowly, layer by layer, like the careful unrolling of a centuries-old scroll. Some secrets are almost tangible, waiting to be grasped with careful attention, while others remain intangible, leaving only questions that hover in the mind. Both are equally compelling, for it is in the interplay of what is known and what is hidden that the fascination of forbidden history resides. As our journey begins, allow yourself to sink into this space of quiet curiosity. Let the boundaries between the past and the present blur just enough to feel the presence of those who came before us. The thinkers, the builders, the keepers of secrets. Their world may have been forbidden, their knowledge veiled, but through careful observation and a willingness to listen, we can catch glimpses of their mysteries. This is where our exploration starts, at the threshold of the known, looking into the shadowed corners of human history, ready to discover the most forbidden ancient mysteries that have patiently waited for centuries to be revealed. Some of the most intriguing chapters of human history are written not in the textbooks, but in the shadows of civilizations that have been all but forgotten. These are societies whose brilliance and sophistication were once evident to those who lived among them, yet today remain veiled in mystery. The Indus Valley Civilization, for example, flourished around 4,500 years ago in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. Cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were carefully planned, with straight streets, grid-like layouts, advanced drainage systems, and uniform bricks. The sophistication of their urban design suggests an understanding of engineering, administration, and social organization that rivals or surpasses contemporary civilizations. Yet, the script of the Indus Valley remains undeciphered, leaving the true nature of their culture, beliefs, and daily life tantalizingly out of reach. The more we uncover about them, the more questions arise. How did such advanced knowledge develop so early? And why did their cities disappear almost without a trace? Far across the world, Cairo in Peru offers another enigma. Dating back over 5,000 years, this ancient city predates the Egyptian pyramids, yet it exhibits a level of complexity that challenges our assumptions about early civilizations. Its sunken plazas, ceremonial pyramids, and evidence of social hierarchy point to a society deeply attuned to ritual, urban planning, and collective coordination. Remarkably, Cairo appears to have developed without the wheel, without significant written records, and with a technology that seems almost primitive in comparison to the sophistication of its construction. Archaeologists are still trying to understand the city's purpose, the means of its survival, and the reasons behind its eventual decline. The mystery of Cairo emphasizes a recurring theme. Brilliance in human history can rise in isolation and then vanish, leaving only echoes of its achievements for us to piece together. In the Mediterranean, the Minoan civilization on Crete presents yet another puzzle. Flourishing between approximately 2714–50 BCE, the Minoans left behind exquisite art, vast palaces, and a society that engaged in wide-reaching trade. Their civilization seems deeply entwined with ritual and aesthetic refinement, visible in the colorful frescoes and intricately designed architecture that have survived the centuries. Yet, the collapse of the Minoans remains largely unexplained. Was it the result of natural disasters, internal conflict, or external invasion? Adding to the enigma, the Minoan script, known as linear, it remains undeciphered, leaving historians unable to fully understand their governance, spirituality, or technological achievements. The tension between the tangible remnants of their civilization and the unseen knowledge that has been lost creates a quiet, lingering sense of wonder, compelling us to imagine what once was and can no longer be fully grasped. What is particularly striking about these civilizations is not just their accomplishments, but the seeming sophistication of their knowledge relative to their era. In South America, the Nazca lines spread across the desert floor, massive geometric shapes and figures only fully appreciable from the air. The precision and scale of these creations remain a puzzle. How were such designs created with limited tools, and for what purpose? Were they astronomical markers, ceremonial pathways, or messages meant for deities above? Similarly, in Europe, Stonehenge continues to baffle researchers. The massive stones, some transported hundreds of miles from their origin, were arranged with remarkable precision and astronomical alignment. How did ancient people, without modern machinery, accomplish such feats? In both cases, we are left to confront the contrast between what is visible, the stone, the earthworks, and the invisible knowledge that enabled their creation. These are civilizations whose intellect, ingenuity, and understanding of the world are quietly spoken through the remnants they left behind. The process of discovering these civilizations also reveals a subtle, often overlooked aspect of human history. Knowledge is fragile and can easily be lost. Entire libraries of wisdom have vanished, cities have crumbled, and oral traditions have faded. The Library of Alexandria, for instance, symbolizes the fragility of accumulated knowledge. Its destruction may have erased countless works, leaving only fragments and echoes behind. Similarly, the mysteries of the Indus Valley, Kerala, and the Minoans remind us that brilliance can be hidden, lost, or suppressed, whether by time, catastrophe, or deliberate choice. Some truths were considered too powerful or dangerous to survive in the open, passed only to a select few, whispered in secrecy, or buried beneath layers of earth and forgotten memory. Even when physical evidence survives, interpretation remains a challenge. Archaeologists can map streets, carbon date pottery, and examine skeletal remains, but reconstructing belief systems, social hierarchies, and knowledge structures is far more difficult. The spaces between artifacts, the missing pieces, the undeciphered scripts, the incomplete structures, often hold the most compelling mysteries. They suggest a knowledge that was either too advanced or too sacred to be preserved in a form easily understood by later generations. This interplay between known and unknown is precisely what makes the exploration of lost civilizations so captivating. It is as much about what is absent as what is present, the silence as much as the echoes. Another remarkable aspect of these ancient societies is how they challenge our assumptions about the linear progression of knowledge. It is tempting to imagine that human understanding grew steadily over time, but these civilizations reveal a more complex narrative. Advanced urban planning, astronomical observation, architectural sophistication, and social organization appeared in disparate places across the world, often centuries before similar developments elsewhere. And yet, in many cases, these advancements were lost or forgotten, leaving later societies to rediscover or reinvent what had already been known. The ebb and flow of knowledge over time highlights the delicate balance between human creativity and historical circumstance, showing us that what is visible in history is only a fraction of what once existed. As we observe these lost civilizations, the contrast between their visible achievements and the invisible knowledge they carried becomes more apparent. Each fragment of pottery, each ruined structure, each undeciphered script serves as a reminder that the past is vast and layered, filled with brilliance that may never be fully understood. The mysteries of these societies evoke a quiet awe, a contemplation of human ingenuity, resilience, and impermanence of even the most sophisticated achievements. They remind us that history is not a finished story, but a tapestry of light and shadow, of discoveries waiting patiently for those who are willing to look closely and listen carefully. In exploring these civilizations, we begin to understand that the most forbidden ancient knowledge often exists in the spaces between what has been recorded and what has been lost. The cities, ruins, and artifacts are but markers pointing to a much larger, largely invisible world of understanding. By following these traces, we enter a liminal space where the boundaries of time, culture, and knowledge blur, inviting us to imagine what was known, what was lost, and what may yet be revealed. It is in this delicate tension between what can be seen and what remains hidden that the fascination of forbidden history endures, drawing us deeper into the mysteries of the human past. Some of the most tantalizing clues to forbidden knowledge are hidden not in ruins or monuments, but in the fragile pages of ancient texts and manuscripts. For millennia, humans have sought to record wisdom, discoveries, and spiritual insights, yet not all knowledge was meant to be freely shared. Across cultures and continents, scribes, priests, and scholars carefully encoded information, sometimes in elaborate symbols, ciphers, or allegories, ensuring that only those initiated could understand the true meaning. These writings, whether carved in stone, inked on papyrus, or etched on metal plates, serve as windows into a world of thought that teeters between revelation and concealment, between the sacred and the forbidden. Consider the codices of Mesoamerica, painstakingly preserved despite the threat of destruction by invaders who sought to erase native knowledge. These texts, often filled with strange symbols, astronomical calculations, and ritual instructions, reveal a civilization attuned to the rhythms of the cosmos. Yet much of their meaning has been lost. The Maya, for instance, recorded their sophisticated understanding of astronomy and mathematics in hieroglyphs that continue to challenge modern decipherment. In these writings, we glimpse the existence of knowledge so advanced it seems almost magical, yet we can only partially access it, as centuries of suppression and decay have obscured the full picture. This delicate balance between accessibility and secrecy is at the heart of forbidden texts. Far away, in the deserts of Egypt, the ancient scrolls and inscriptions within tombs hint at esoteric wisdom passed down through priesthoods. Some texts, such as the so-called Book of the Dead, were designed to guide the soul through the afterlife. Yet embedded within these instructions are references to metaphysical ideas and spiritual practices that remain difficult to fully interpret. Hieroglyphs and symbolic imagery often carried layered meanings, visible to the uninitiated as simple stories, but revealing deeper philosophical or scientific principles to those with knowledge of the codes. The guardians of these texts understood that knowledge could be powerful, transformative, and, in some cases, dangerous, and they took painstaking measures to preserve it while limiting access. Even in the ancient Middle East, texts written in cuneiform on clay tablets or inscribed on metal surfaces preserve fragments of forbidden knowledge. From the astronomical calculations of the Babylonians to the alchemical formulas of early scholars, these writings reveal a fascination with the natural and cosmic order. Some of these records suggest knowledge that exceeds what historians had previously credited to these civilizations, offering glimpses of mathematical, astronomical, and possibly technological insights that seem advanced for their time. These discoveries underscore the tension between what history records openly and what knowledge was deliberately hidden, whether by fear, reverence, or political power. Esoteric wisdom is also woven into religious and mystical writings. In certain sacred texts, allegorical language, numerical symbolism, and coded passages were intentionally embedded to obscure understanding. The intention was not to deceive, but to protect knowledge from misuse, to ensure that only those trained or initiated could comprehend its full significance. This creates a dual experience for modern readers: a sense of awe at the depth of understanding and a persistent frustration at the gaps that prevent full comprehension. The thrill of this partial revelation is central to the allure of forbidden ancient texts. Some manuscripts have an even darker history, having been deliberately destroyed or hidden to prevent their ideas from spreading. During periods of conquest or religious reform, scribes and rulers often considered knowledge threatening if it challenged orthodoxy, authority, or societal norms. Texts containing alternative cosmologies, experimental science, or unorthodox spiritual teachings were lost, sometimes forever. What remains today is only a fraction of what was known, a scattered constellation of symbols, diagrams, and instructions that hint at a much larger, now mostly invisible, body of understanding. This deliberate concealment adds to the mystique of these writings and reinforces the idea that some knowledge is not meant for casual discovery. At the same time, some texts were cleverly encoded to appear mundane while concealing profound secrets. Alchemical manuscripts, for instance, often describe transformations of substances in symbolic or poetic language, which might seem metaphorical to the uninitiated but hold real chemical, spiritual, or philosophical significance to those who understand the cipher. Similarly, Kabbalistic and mystical texts in various traditions use letters, numbers, and arrangement patterns to encode hidden teachings, creating layers of meaning that have withstood the test of time. In these instances, the reader becomes a detective, tracing the hidden paths laid out by ancient minds who understood that knowledge is most powerful when both revealed and concealed. It is remarkable how these ancient texts illustrate a recurring human impulse, the desire to record and transmit knowledge, tempered by the recognition that some truths must be protected. Knowledge was treated as a living, sacred entity, capable of shaping the world in profound ways, and those entrusted with it bore great responsibility. Scribes, priests, and scholars often devoted their entire lives to preserving this wisdom, encoding it in symbols, allegories, or numerical systems, fully aware that future generations might struggle to access it. Their careful stewardship, combined with centuries of loss, destruction, and decay, has left us with tantalizing fragments, threads of understanding that we can follow, but never fully grasp. The fascination with forbidden texts is not merely academic, it is deeply human. We are drawn to the idea of hidden knowledge, to the thrill of uncovering secrets that others sought to protect. It reminds us that history is never fully complete, that human understanding is layered and complex, and that the past is often more sophisticated and mysterious than it first appears. In reading these manuscripts, we are connected across millennia to individuals who sought to understand the cosmos, the human mind, and the mysteries of existence, often at great personal risk. As we move forward into deeper mysteries, it becomes clear that the most forbidden knowledge does not always reside in monuments or artifacts, but in these delicate texts, waiting for patient minds to decipher their meaning. They invite us to linger, to observe, and to imagine worlds that existed alongside our own, filled with insights, discoveries, and practices that defy modern understanding. Each symbol, each coded passage, each fragmentary scroll acts as a whisper from the past, a reminder that even in secrecy, knowledge can endure, waiting quietly to be revealed. Throughout human history, knowledge has always carried power, and with power comes the need for protection. In many ancient societies, certain truths were considered too potent, too sacred, or too dangerous to be shared with the masses. These truths were entrusted to select individuals, groups, or priesthoods whose sole purpose was to guard the wisdom of the ages. They were the silent custodians of secrets, the keepers of forbidden knowledge, working quietly behind the scenes to ensure that what was valuable was neither lost nor misused. Their existence is often hinted at in myth, in the symbols scattered across ruins, and in the careful preservation of texts and artifacts that might otherwise have been destroyed. In civilizations around the world, these guardians took many forms. In Egypt, the priesthood maintained access to sacred texts and rituals, ensuring that the knowledge of the afterlife, cosmic order, and spiritual practices was transmitted only to those prepared to understand it. Temples and tombs were not merely centers of worship, but also repositories of esoteric wisdom, with inner sanctums restricted to the initiated. Similarly, in Mesopotamia, scribes and astrologers held knowledge of the stars, the seasons, and celestial cycles, guiding kings and societies with insights that were considered powerful and, at times, dangerous if misinterpreted. Their authority derived not only from what they knew, but from the ability to determine who could access that knowledge and under what conditions. Secret societies and mystery cults also played a crucial role in the preservation and protection of hidden knowledge. Groups such as the Eleusinian Mysteries in ancient Greece initiated members into profound spiritual rites, offering glimpses of the cosmos and human consciousness that were deliberately obscured from outsiders. These rituals, often shrouded in symbolism and secrecy, were not merely religious ceremonies, but conduits for understanding principles of life, death, and the unseen forces governing existence. Only those who completed the initiation could fully comprehend the teachings, creating a structure in which knowledge was protected while still being transmitted. In this way, secrecy became a form of stewardship, ensuring that the most potent ideas were preserved without falling into unprepared hands. The role of these guardians was not always benevolent, nor were their motives entirely spiritual. Knowledge was power, and controlling access to it often meant controlling society itself. Kings, pharaohs, and emperors sometimes relied on secret advisors or priesthoods to consolidate authority, maintain order, and protect sacred truths. The line between wisdom and influence was thin, and in many cases, these guardians wielded both quietly and effectively. Symbols, codes, and hidden chambers ensured that even within a civilization, only a chosen few could access the full extent of knowledge, creating an inner world invisible to the majority. This duality, the coexistence of public knowledge and hidden wisdom, defined much of ancient history and contributes to the enduring intrigue of forbidden mysteries. In Asia, similar systems existed. In ancient China, certain texts and practices were restricted to scholars and elite classes, while Taoist masters and Confucian sages preserved philosophical and spiritual teachings that were considered too complex or potent for general consumption. In India, secret knowledge was often embedded in oral traditions, passed down through generations of initiates within the Guru-Shishya system. These guardians understood that knowledge, once revealed without preparation, could be misinterpreted, distorted, or even dangerous. By controlling access, they ensured its continuity, maintaining the delicate balance between revelation and concealment. Many of these custodians also used physical spaces to protect knowledge. Hidden chambers, underground libraries, and concealed temples served as fortresses for wisdom. Within their walls, manuscripts, artifacts, and ritual objects were stored, often with encoded instructions or cryptic inscriptions that only the trained could decipher. In Europe, medieval monasteries and convents performed a similar function, preserving texts from antiquity while shielding them from destruction during periods of political upheaval or religious reform. The meticulous copying of manuscripts, the careful storage of scrolls, and the adherence to symbolic codes all reflect a profound awareness that knowledge is fragile and must be protected if it is to endure. The guardians of hidden knowledge were also custodians of time. They understood that wisdom could not be rushed and that understanding often required patience, reflection, and gradual revelation. This is why secrecy was not always a matter of fear, but of prudence. Some truths, when revealed too soon, could be misapplied or misinterpreted. By controlling the pace and context of dissemination, these custodians ensured that knowledge had a better chance of surviving and being used responsibly. In this sense, the act of concealment was itself an expression of care, a deliberate and thoughtful approach to the stewardship of ideas that might otherwise be lost or corrupted. The legacy of these guardians is still evident today, even in the faintest traces. Symbols etched in stone, obscure references in surviving texts, and architectural alignments hint at the deliberate placement of knowledge in ways that only the initiated could fully understand. These markers act as breadcrumbs, guiding modern observers toward insights that were carefully hidden, often in plain sight. They remind us that the past is layered, that much of what we see is only a surface representation, and that beneath it lies a depth of understanding carefully curated and preserved over generations. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of these ancient custodians is their patience. Unlike modern record-keeping or digital storage, the preservation of knowledge in ancient times required physical effort, devotion, and foresight. Temples had to be maintained, manuscripts copied by hand, and initiates trained to decode symbolic language. Every act of preservation was deliberate, a small rebellion against the relentless passage of time that threatens to erase everything. The quiet perseverance of these guardians allowed fragments of forbidden knowledge to survive millennia, waiting for patient minds to rediscover them. As we consider the role of these secret keepers, we begin to see the subtle patterns woven into history. Civilizations often rose and fell around hidden truths, with power, ritual, and knowledge intertwined in ways that shaped the course of events. The interplay between public history and concealed wisdom reveals a dimension of human experience that is rarely acknowledged, but profoundly influential. It is in this shadowed realm, where knowledge is both protected and revealed, that some of the most enduring and captivating mysteries of the ancient world reside. inviting us to trace the paths once guarded so carefully and to understand the delicate art of preservation that allowed these secrets to endure. As we leave behind the stories of secret societies and guardians of hidden knowledge, we turn our attention to the traces these mysteries have left upon the physical world. Ruins, hidden chambers, and underground cities act as silent witnesses to civilizations whose understanding far exceeded what has been preserved in conventional history. Unlike texts, which can be carefully encoded or partially destroyed, stone endures. Yet even in stone, there are puzzles. Monuments, megaliths, and subterranean structures often appear deliberately aligned, placed, or designed in ways that hint at meanings lost to time. Walking among these remnants, one senses the presence of those who built them, the unseen hands that arranged them with care, and the hidden knowledge that guided their construction. Some structures are immediately imposing, designed to inspire awe and reverence, yet they simultaneously conceal mysteries within their very walls. The pyramids of Egypt, for example, stand as monumental testaments to human ingenuity and organization. Yet within their perfectly constructed chambers lie chambers that remain unexplored, passages whose purposes are still debated by scholars, and alignments that point to celestial phenomena we are only beginning to understand. These structures embody a tension between the visible and the hidden, between the grandeur of human achievement and the secrets that persist beneath the surface. They remind us that architecture, in many ancient civilizations, was never purely functional. It was a language, a repository, and a form of coded memory. Beyond grand monuments, entire cities and settlements provide equally compelling evidence of knowledge hidden in plain sight. From the labyrinthine ruins of Mohenjo-daro to the sunken settlements submerged by rising waters or shifting sands, each site offers clues about the sophistication of societies that lived and thrived long before modern civilization. Streets were meticulously planned, water systems engineered with precision, and buildings aligned to environmental or astronomical patterns that remain perplexing today. Yet the true purpose behind many of these designs often eludes us. Was the layout purely practical, or did it encode knowledge, ritual significance, or cosmological understanding meant only for the initiated to perceive? The line between functionality and secrecy blurs, leaving us to wonder what other insights are encoded within the stones themselves. Underground spaces amplify this sense of hidden mystery. Across the world, subterranean cities and tunnels, sometimes spanning miles, have been discovered in regions such as Anatolia in modern-day Turkey. These underground complexes, complete with ventilation systems, living quarters, and storage chambers, suggest a level of planning and engineering that challenges our assumptions about ancient societies. Why were these spaces built? Were they shelters from natural disasters, retreats from conflict, or repositories for forbidden knowledge? The answers remain elusive, and in that ambiguity lies a quiet allure. Walking through such spaces, one cannot help but feel a connection to the past, a reminder that much of what is important was intentionally hidden, protected from the gaze of the uninitiated. Even the landscape itself sometimes bears the marks of concealed wisdom. Geoglyphs etched into deserts, mounds carefully constructed along riverbanks, and stone circles positioned to align with solstices and equinoxes suggest that ancient people understood patterns far beyond what casual observation might reveal. These placements were deliberate, suggesting knowledge of astronomy, geometry, and cycles of nature that were carefully encoded into the environment. Observing these sites today, from ground level or from afar, evokes a sense of reverence and curiosity. They are subtle messages left by those who understood the interplay between human activity and the natural world, messages that remain waiting to be fully interpreted. What makes these physical remnants particularly fascinating is their dual nature. On one hand, they are tangible, grounded, and measurable. We can touch the stones, map the streets, and explore the chambers. On the other hand, they contain layers of meaning that remain invisible to the casual observer. Hidden chambers, unexplained alignments, and symbols carved into stone hint at a knowledge that transcends the immediate function of the structures. The interplay between what is visible and what is concealed creates a space for wonder and speculation. It is in this space that the allure of forbidden history thrives. The knowledge is not entirely lost, yet requires careful observation, patience, and imagination to access. This exploration of ruins and underground spaces serves as a gentle bridge between the abstract secrecy of texts and the tangible manifestation of hidden knowledge in the physical world. It reminds us that civilizations have long sought to preserve wisdom through both ideas and architecture, leaving traces that endure long after the people themselves have vanished. Each stone, each passage, and each alignment becomes a whisper from the past, inviting us to pause, observe, and reflect. The world of ancient mysteries is not confined to pages or stories. It is etched into the very earth, waiting for those who approach with curiosity, respect, and patience. In walking among these remnants, one begins to appreciate a central lesson of forbidden history. Knowledge is both fragile and enduring. It can be hidden, encoded, or buried, yet it persists, shaped into forms that outlast generations. The challenge lies in seeing beyond the obvious, in discerning the subtle signals left by those who came before us. In this quiet observation, we begin to sense the continuum of human ingenuity, the echo of minds who labored to preserve what they knew for those willing to search. And it is this continuity between stone, text, ritual, and human curiosity that guides us gently into the deeper mysteries that await in the chapters to come. Among the most compelling aspects of ancient civilizations are the remnants of technology that continue to fascinate and perplex modern scholars. Across the globe, we encounter evidence of tools, constructions, and techniques that seem surprisingly advanced for their time. In many cases, these discoveries challenge our assumptions about the linear progression of human knowledge, suggesting that ancient people understood principles of engineering, astronomy, and material science far earlier than previously thought. The precision of their work, the sophistication of their planning, and the apparent integration of practical and symbolic knowledge all hint at a depth of understanding that has been obscured, lost, or deliberately hidden. Consider the massive stone structures that the landscapes of Peru, such as Sacsayhuaman or Ollantaytambo. The stones are cut with such precision that even today, it is nearly impossible to slide a piece of paper between them. Some of these stones weigh hundreds of tons, yet they were transported and placed with an accuracy that defies explanation based on the technology we typically associate with the era. The methods by which ancient builders achieved this level of precision remain largely speculative. Were they using simple tools with extraordinary skill, or did they possess knowledge that has since been lost to time? The enigma lies not only in the physical accomplishment, but in the understanding of the principles that made it possible, a knowledge that was simultaneously practical, symbolic, and perhaps sacred. In Egypt, the Great Pyramids continue to spark debate about ancient engineering. The alignment of these monumental structures with celestial points, the precise measurement of their chambers, and the apparent understanding of mathematical and geometric principles suggest a level of technical knowledge that seems strikingly modern. The pyramids were not built merely as tombs. They were expressions of cosmic order, integrating astronomy, ritual, and construction in ways that remain deeply impressive. Scholars have long wondered how the builders moved and placed such enormous stones, maintained precise alignments over large distances, and incorporated symbolic meaning into their design. Each question points toward an intelligence that combined observation, experimentation, and an understanding of the world that we are only beginning to appreciate. Beyond stone constructions, there are artifacts that hint at technological knowledge far ahead of their time. The Antikythera mechanism, a bronze device recovered from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, is a prime example. Dating back over 2,000 years, it functions as a complex astronomical calculator, able to predict celestial movements with astonishing accuracy. For centuries, this device seemed impossible, as similar technology was thought to have emerged only in the modern era. The mechanism demonstrates that knowledge can be both advanced and ephemeral. Once understood, it can be lost if not widely shared, replicated, or preserved. In this case, the sophistication of ancient engineering challenges our understanding of the capabilities of Greek society and invites speculation about other knowledge that may have existed but vanished. The mystery of ancient technology extends to metallurgy as well. In regions such as India, the iron pillar of Delhi has withstood corrosion for over 16 centuries, an enduring testament to metallurgical skill. Its resilience raises questions about the knowledge of alloy composition, atmospheric conditions, and crafting methods possessed by ancient blacksmiths. Similarly, evidence from Mesopotamia suggests that early societies developed sophisticated methods for smelting, casting, and alloying metals, far beyond what one might expect given the apparent simplicity of other aspects of their daily lives. These technological feats were not accidental. They reflect careful observation, experimentation, and a deep understanding of natural materials. Astronomy and timekeeping provide another realm where ancient civilizations demonstrate extraordinary technological sophistication. Stone circles, observatories, and alignments in cultures from Britain to Mesoamerica reveal an advanced understanding of celestial patterns. Some structures were designed to mark solstices and equinoxes, others to track lunar cycles or the movements of specific stars. These observations required not only patience and precision, but also an understanding of cyclical patterns that could be recorded and applied across generations. Such knowledge was often encoded in rituals, mythologies, and calendars, ensuring that it could be preserved even when the scientific principles themselves were not explicitly written down. The integration of observation, calculation, and cultural transmission reflects a sophisticated approach to technology that is both practical and symbolic. Yet perhaps the most intriguing aspect of ancient technology is the question of intent. In many cases, the advanced methods and constructions appear to have been deliberately obscured or reserved for select individuals. Knowledge could be both a tool and a secret, accessible only to those deemed worthy or initiated into specific rites. This selective preservation ensured that technology and wisdom were transmitted responsibly, but it also contributed to the mysteries we encounter today. When we study these achievements, we are confronted with the duality of ancient knowledge. It is tangible, yet partly hidden, practical, yet symbolic, observable, yet largely enigmatic. These technological mysteries encourage a reconsideration of our understanding of progress. Modern assumptions often assume a linear trajectory of improvement, but the evidence suggests that knowledge in the ancient world was sometimes cyclical, fragmented, or deliberately concealed. Skills could rise to extraordinary levels in one civilization, only to vanish in the next. Understanding how ancient engineers, builders, and scientists thought requires not only technical analysis, but also an appreciation of the cultural and symbolic context in which knowledge existed. Ancient technology was rarely separated from philosophy, spirituality, or ritual. It was an expression of a worldview that integrated observation, reverence, and practical application. The allure of ancient technology lies not only in what was achieved, but in the questions it raises about what has been lost. Each stone precisely cut, each device ingeniously designed, each alignment perfectly calculated acts as a window into a mind capable of extraordinary observation and understanding. Yet, the full scope of their knowledge remains just beyond reach, preserved only in fragments, partially encoded, or silently awaiting rediscovery. This tension between what can be observed and what remains hidden is central to the fascination with forbidden ancient mysteries. It reminds us that human ingenuity is not bound by time, and that even the most advanced knowledge can vanish, leaving only traces for us to marvel at centuries later. As we contemplate these technological achievements, we are drawn into a world where precision, observation, and understanding intersect with secrecy, ritual, and symbolism. Ancient technology was more than mere tools or structures. It was a medium through which civilizations expressed their understanding of the universe, their values, and their place within it. Each discovery offers both clarity and mystery, illuminating the capabilities of past societies while leaving us in awe of the knowledge that remains just out of reach. In this quiet exploration, we begin to sense the depth of human potential, the enduring ingenuity of civilizations long gone, and the fragile but persistent presence of forbidden knowledge waiting to be revealed. Among the most compelling windows into forbidden ancient knowledge are tombs, burial chambers, and cities long hidden beneath layers of earth and sand. These spaces are silent, enduring, and yet brimming with the echoes of lives, beliefs, and wisdom that were deliberately preserved, or deliberately concealed, for reasons we may never fully understand. Unlike texts or artifacts which can be moved or copied, the tomb itself becomes a vessel, a time capsule that holds not only material wealth, but also ideas, ritual practices, and symbolic knowledge intended for those who knew how to interpret it. The hidden nature of these resting places, often guarded by secrecy, traps, or natural barriers, speaks to a profound understanding of the human desire for both remembrance and protection. In Egypt, the Valley of the Kings provides a striking example of such care and secrecy. Pharaohs and high-ranking officials were entombed in elaborate chambers, their bodies and possessions carefully arranged to ensure a safe passage into the afterlife. But beyond the well-documented treasures, there are countless tombs whose locations remain undiscovered, or whose inscriptions and chambers remain only partially explored. The hieroglyphs, paintings, and symbolic structures within these tombs were never intended for casual observation. They encoded beliefs about cosmology, morality, and the nature of existence itself. For centuries, the treasures of these tombs were hidden, protected by both human guardians and the treacherous desert environment, emphasizing the importance of safeguarding what was considered sacred knowledge. Further afield, in Mesoamerica, the tombs of the Maya and Aztec rulers reveal a similar intertwining of the material and the mystical. Burials were often accompanied by intricate offerings, ceremonial items, and codices that were meant to guide the deceased in the spiritual realm. The placement of these objects, the alignment of burial chambers, and the inscriptions on walls and artifacts suggest that the tombs themselves were designed as repositories of knowledge. Some of this knowledge was practical, relating to astronomy, agriculture, or governance, while other elements were deeply symbolic, meant to convey sacred truths about life, death, and cosmic order. The fact that many of these tombs remain hidden or only partially excavated adds to the sense of mystery, as if the knowledge contained within is still waiting for the right moment or the right observer to be revealed. Buried cities offer an even more expansive glimpse into hidden civilizations. Cities like Pompeii, preserved beneath volcanic ash, provide a moment frozen in time, revealing domestic life, social organization, and cultural practices in remarkable detail. Yet even here, the story is incomplete. Streets lead to structures whose purposes remain debated, walls bear inscriptions whose full meanings are uncertain, and artifacts hint at rituals and technologies that we do not fully comprehend. Similarly, in Anatolia, underground cities such as Derinkuyu reveal vast, labyrinthine networks capable of housing thousands, with tunnels, ventilation systems, and storage chambers all meticulously engineered. These subterranean marvels demonstrate that ancient people not only mastered practical construction, but also understood the value of concealment, preserving knowledge, resources, and communities in ways that could survive external threats. Tombs in buried cities often serve as both physical and symbolic markers of forbidden knowledge. The act of burial itself is significant. It is a gesture of concealment, a deliberate choice to hide something valuable from the casual observer. Yet, by hiding it, the ancient architects and builders also preserved it for posterity, creating a dialogue across millennia. Each discovery, each careful excavation, becomes an encounter with intention, inviting us to decode the layers of meaning embedded in stone, soil, and artifact. We are not merely uncovering objects. We are engaging with the worldview, priorities, and understanding of civilizations that carefully determined what could be revealed, to whom, and when. Many of these hidden sites were protected not only by natural obstacles, but also by deliberate measures designed to prevent intrusion. Traps, narrow passageways, and misleading corridors were common features, particularly in tombs of the wealthy or powerful. In some cultures, tombs were deliberately camouflaged to blend into the surrounding environment, while underground cities often required intimate knowledge of entrances, ventilation systems, and escape routes. These measures suggest a profound understanding of human curiosity, and perhaps even a recognition of the danger inherent in certain knowledge. The builders were not merely preserving items. They were protecting wisdom, rituals, and information that they believed could be misused if discovered prematurely. Even in ruins that have been exposed by time, much remains deliberately enigmatic. Some chambers are sealed in ways that make interpretation difficult. Inscriptions are partially eroded, and objects are arranged with symbolic intent that may be lost to us. In this sense, forbidden tombs and buried cities are as much about absence as they are about presence. The knowledge they contain is fragmentary, tantalizing, and demanding of patience, observation, and imagination. Walking through such spaces, one senses both the care and the intention of those who created them, as well as the profound mysteries that endure long after the builders themselves have disappeared. The study of these hidden spaces also reveals the universality of human concerns. Across continents and cultures, civilizations took extraordinary measures to protect their dead, their wealth, and their knowledge. The same principles appear repeatedly: secrecy, preservation, and symbolic encoding. This suggests that the impulse to safeguard understanding is a fundamental part of human nature, a recognition that some knowledge is too important, too transformative, or too dangerous to leave unprotected. Tombs and buried cities become a mirror of human foresight, creativity, and reverence, preserving wisdom not only for practical purposes, but also for spiritual and philosophical reflection. As we explore these hidden realms, we begin to understand that forbidden knowledge is rarely lost entirely. It endures, layered within the physical spaces of tombs, beneath the streets of buried cities, and hidden in plain sight. Each discovery is both a revelation and a question, a bridge between the past and present that invites careful attention and deep contemplation. The remnants of these civilizations remind us that history is not just a record of events, but a tapestry of wisdom, intention, and secrecy. By tracing the patterns left in tombs and cities, we gain insight not only into what people knew, but into how they chose to protect and transmit that knowledge, leaving a silent invitation for future generations to seek understanding. In walking among these sites, one cannot help but feel a quiet reverence. There's a stillness in these spaces, a sense that the past is speaking in subtle, deliberate ways. Tombs and buried cities are not only repositories of material wealth. They are repositories of ideas, understanding, and human ingenuity. They challenge us to look beyond the obvious, to consider what is hidden in the layers of earth, stone, and time. They are invitations to curiosity, patience, and reflection, reminding us that the most forbidden ancient mysteries are often preserved not in plain sight, but in the quiet, deliberate concealment of what was deemed too precious or dangerous to reveal. Beyond the physical remnants of civilizations, the most elusive forms of forbidden knowledge often reside in rituals, ceremonies, and practices that were never intended to be fully understood by outsiders. These rites, whether performed in temples, sacred groves, or hidden chambers, were deeply intertwined with the social, spiritual, and intellectual fabric of ancient societies. They were the living expressions of beliefs and knowledge, transmitted through action, memory, and repetition rather than written text. To witness or participate in such rituals was to access a layer of understanding that could not be easily recorded or replicated, a knowledge that remained secret by design. Many of these rituals were connected to the cycles of nature, the movements of celestial bodies, or the transitions of life and death. In Egypt, for instance, elaborate funeral rites were not merely symbolic. They encoded sophisticated cosmological knowledge, guiding the deceased through the afterlife while teaching the living about the cycles of the cosmos. Similarly, in Mesoamerica, ceremonies marking the solstices, equinoxes, and planetary alignments reflected a profound understanding of astronomy and its influence on agriculture, society, and spirituality. These rituals were often highly choreographed, combining music, dance, offerings, and symbolic objects, creating a multi-layered experience that conveyed knowledge to those trained to perceive its meaning. Initiation rites and mystery cults offer another layer of hidden wisdom. Across Greece, Egypt, India, and other ancient cultures, secret ceremonies were designed to gradually introduce participants to concepts too powerful, complex, or sacred for casual understanding. The Eleusinian mysteries in Greece, for example, were conducted in strict secrecy, revealing profound spiritual truths only to those who had undergone rigorous preparation. Similarly, in India, the Guru-Shishya tradition ensured that esoteric knowledge was passed from master to student with careful guidance, emphasizing comprehension, discipline, and responsibility. In these contexts, secrecy was not about control for its own sake, but about preserving the integrity and efficacy of the knowledge itself. Rituals often combine practical, symbolic, and spiritual dimensions, blurring the lines between observable actions and hidden meaning. A ceremony might appear, on the surface, as a form of worship or social gathering, yet each gesture, chant, and placement of objects could convey information about cosmology, medicinal practices, agricultural cycles, or governance. This layered approach ensured that knowledge was both encoded and protected. Only those who understood the context, symbols, and sequences could access the full scope of what was being taught or transmitted. In this way, rituals became living repositories of wisdom, preserved through repetition and discipline rather than through texts that could be lost or destroyed. The deliberate concealment of ritual knowledge often extended to its timing and location. Sacred ceremonies were conducted in spaces hidden from casual observation. Underground chambers, remote mountaintops, dense forests, or interior rooms of temples. These locations ensured that only those with the appropriate training or social status could participate, reinforcing the boundary between the initiated and the uninitiated. This spatial secrecy amplified the sense of mystery and power surrounding the rituals, underscoring the idea that some knowledge was too potent to be revealed indiscriminately. Even when fragments of ritual practices survive, through descriptions in foreign accounts, scattered artifacts, or symbolic remnants, the full understanding remains elusive. Archaeologists and historians can analyze objects, examine ceremonial sites, and interpret iconography, yet the experiential and symbolic aspects of the rituals often remain inaccessible. This partial glimpse creates a tension between what is known and what is hidden, inviting curiosity while emphasizing the limitations of modern interpretation. The mystery persists not because the knowledge is unknowable, but because it was intentionally preserved in a form that requires context, experience, and insight to decode. What is particularly striking about lost rituals and hidden practices is their universality. Across continents and eras, societies independently recognize the need to preserve certain knowledge through action rather than words. Whether through initiation, ceremony, or symbolic performance, rituals encoded values, cosmology, and wisdom in ways that transcended written language. They remind us that knowledge can be dynamic, embodied, and relational, transmitted across generations not just through instruction, but through participation, observation, and careful adherence to tradition. As we reflect on these hidden practices, it becomes clear that forbidden knowledge is not merely a matter of objects or texts. It exists in movement, sound, rhythm, and repetition, intangible yet enduring. Rituals served as both a protective mechanism and a method of transmission, ensuring that wisdom survived through generations while remaining secure from those unprepared to grasp it. In contemplating these ceremonies, we gain insight not only into what ancient societies knew, but also into how they valued, protected, and transmitted that knowledge, creating a legacy that continues to whisper across time. In stepping into this world of hidden rituals, we are invited to slow down, to observe carefully, and to imagine the richness of knowledge that existed in ways that cannot be fully captured in writing or stone. These practices, preserved in memory and action, remind us that human understanding is complex, multidimensional, and often intentionally veiled. They are a bridge between what is visible and what is hidden, preparing us to enter deeper into the mysteries of ancient civilizations, where knowledge, power, and secrecy converge to create the most forbidden legacies of the past. Symbols and codes are perhaps the most enduring fingerprints of forbidden knowledge. Across civilizations, humans have used symbolic language to encode meaning, to communicate complex ideas, and to protect knowledge from those deemed unprepared. Unlike words, which can be read and interpreted directly, symbols operate on multiple levels. They can convey practical instructions, philosophical truths, spiritual insights, and even warnings all at once. To the uninitiated, they may appear decorative, mysterious, or meaningless, yet to those trained in their significance, each line, curve, or pattern can hold profound meaning. In this way, symbols serve as bridges between visible reality and hidden understanding, silently guiding those who know how to read them. From the intricate geometric designs of the Nazca lines to the coded inscriptions found on the walls of Egyptian temples, symbols were deliberately embedded into the environment. The Nazca lines, for instance, depict animals, humans, and geometric forms that are only fully appreciable from the air. Their purpose has been debated for decades. Were they astronomical markers, sacred pathways, or messages intended for the gods above? Similarly, Egyptian hieroglyphs combine pictorial and phonetic elements, often layering meaning in ways that are both practical and symbolic. Some hieroglyphs convey straightforward information, while others encode metaphysical principles, cosmological beliefs, or spiritual instructions, accessible only to those who had received the proper initiation and training. Symbols were not merely abstract. They were practical tools of communication and preservation. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform script evolved to record commerce, law, and astronomy, yet it also encoded religious and esoteric knowledge. The repetition, placement, and subtle variations in the marks often conveyed additional meaning beyond the surface text. Similarly, in medieval Europe, illuminated manuscripts and alchemical texts were filled with cryptic symbols, combining numbers, shapes, and images to obscure knowledge from those who were not prepared. These symbols acted as protective layers, ensuring that wisdom was transmitted responsibly while remaining hidden from misuse or misunderstanding. Codes, in particular, exemplify the intersection of secrecy and intelligence. Throughout history, societies have deliberately concealed knowledge through encryption, numerical substitution, or complex allegories. Alchemists, for example, employed symbolic language to describe chemical transformations, presenting their work as metaphors to protect their discoveries. In China, Taoist texts sometimes used esoteric diagrams and symbols to encode spiritual and medical knowledge, preserving it for select students while leaving outsiders puzzled. The use of codes reflects an acute awareness that knowledge can be both empowering and dangerous, and that protection is necessary to ensure its longevity and ethical application. The beauty of symbols and codes lies in their multidimensionality. A single symbol might simultaneously convey spiritual insight, practical instruction, and aesthetic harmony. It can act as a mnemonic device, a map of cosmic or natural principles, or moral guide. In the context of forbidden knowledge, this layered function allowed civilizations to transmit wisdom in ways that were durable, subtle, and difficult to misinterpret without proper training. It is a quiet reminder that ancient minds were not only intelligent, but profoundly deliberate in the ways they preserved and shared their understanding. Deciphering these codes today is often a painstaking and incomplete process. Archaeologists, linguists, and historians can study inscriptions, compare symbols across sites, and reconstruct possible meanings. Yet the full intent of many symbols remains elusive. Some may represent lost languages or dialects. Others may encode knowledge intentionally obscured to preserve its sanctity. This partial accessibility contributes to the fascination of forbidden mysteries. Each symbol we begin to understand opens a door, yet behind it lies an entire room of knowledge that remains just beyond reach. The interplay between clarity and obscurity keeps our curiosity alive, urging us to look closer, think deeper, and imagine the minds that created these intricate systems of communication. Even in modern interpretations, ancient symbols continue to captivate because they resonate on psychological, aesthetic, and spiritual levels. Circular motifs, spirals, and geometric patterns appear repeatedly across cultures, from Celtic knots to Hindu yantras. These recurring motifs suggest shared understanding or universal principles, yet their specific meaning often shifts according to context, culture, or intended audience. This adaptability adds another layer of sophistication. Symbols were designed to endure through time, to communicate across generations, and to remain relevant even as societies changed. They are not static relics. They're living traces of human thought and imagination. The very act of encoding knowledge in symbols and codes also reflects a profound awareness of human nature. Ancient civilizations recognized that some truths are too powerful, dangerous, or transformative to be revealed indiscriminately. By embedding knowledge within symbols, they could preserve wisdom while controlling access. This approach ensured that understanding would be earned, interpreted responsibly, and transmitted with care. In essence, symbols acted as both key and lock, guiding the initiated while shielding the unprepared, creating a system in which knowledge was both preserved and protected. In contemplating ancient symbols and codes, we also encounter the aesthetic dimension of forbidden knowledge. The elegance of design, the balance of proportion, and the harmony of elements were often considered inseparable from meaning. A symbol was not merely functional. It was beautiful, intentional, and resonant. Its visual form reinforced its conceptual depth, creating a holistic experience of knowledge that appealed to multiple senses and faculties. This synthesis of art, intellect, and spirituality is characteristic of civilizations that understood the inseparability of knowledge, beauty, and morality. As we reflect on the role of symbols and codes in preserving forbidden knowledge, it becomes clear that these ancient systems were both sophisticated and deliberate. They offered a method of transmission that could survive time, decay, and human interference, yet they also imposed a challenge. Only the patient, the observant, and the dedicated could decode their secrets. In doing so, we are invited to enter a dialogue with the past, tracing the lines, forms, and inscriptions left by minds that valued knowledge, secrecy, and understanding above all else. Through symbols and codes, the past speaks quietly but insistently, reminding us that the most profound mysteries are often those encoded not in plain language, but in patterns, shapes, and signs that endure long after civilizations have vanished. Nature has always held a quiet authority over human imagination, shaping stories long before writing carved them into permanence. When ancient people looked out at a world filled with unpredictable forces, strange lights in the sky, the ground trembling beneath their feet, rivers that vanished overnight, they searched for meaning in the only language they had, myth and ritual. In this gentle exploration, we drift into that realm, where natural events became messages, warnings, or blessings from unseen powers. Though today we explain these phenomena with science, it's worth remembering that the people who first witnessed them didn't have such tools. They had only their senses, their fears, and their deep desire to understand the planet that sustained them. And so, many of the mysteries we now label forbidden, supernatural, or esoteric may simply be echoes of Earth's own behavior, misunderstood through the lens of ancient eyes. Imagine a time when the ground suddenly shook, splitting open without warning. To us, an earthquake is an unfortunate but familiar natural event. To an ancient community, though, it might have felt like the earth itself was speaking, angry, hungry, or restless. Entire mythologies grew from such moments, built around gods who stomped, battled, or shifted in their slumber beneath the soil. The contrast between the gentle stillness of daily life and the sudden violence of nature made these events feel deeply personal. People sought explanations that could comfort them, and stories were born as a way to regain a sense of control. Magnetic anomalies provide another example. There are regions where compasses behave strangely, where birds migrate off their usual paths, where even early navigators felt disoriented for reasons they could not explain. Modern science now ties these oddities to shifts in Earth's magnetic field or geological formations rich in iron. But to the ancients, such places often became sacred or cursed. They felt different, charged, heavy, or simply unusual in a way people could sense but not describe. Some believed spirits gathered there. Others built temples, convinced that the unusual energy must indicate a doorway to the divine. What we interpret as a simple geological curiosity was once seen as a portal between worlds. Unusual weather patterns also shaped powerful legends. Consider rare atmospheric events like ball lightning, pillars of light, or shimmering auroras seen far outside their normal regions. Imagine a small coastal village, quiet fires burning, fishermen repairing nets, when suddenly the sky ripples with colors no one has ever witnessed before. With no scientific framework, the villagers might interpret this as the arrival of celestial beings or the anger of sea gods. Some rituals, especially those passed down without explanation, may have begun in response to such rare incidents. The known and unknown collided in the sky, leaving behind stories that grew more mystical with each retelling. Even simple geological processes could appear supernatural when observed without context. A river changing course overnight might seem like the work of an unseen power. Sinkholes could swallow entire sections of a settlement without warning, sparking tales of vengeful spirits or cursed land. Volcanic eruptions, especially those that occurred thousands of years ago, could imprint themselves so deeply on cultural memory that the resulting myth survived long after the scientific cause was forgotten. Ash clouds covering the sun could be interpreted as prophecy. Red skies might be read as omens of blood or war. The boundary between natural event and divine message was porous, fluid, ever-shifting. It's also important to remember how acoustics shaped ancient interpretations. Certain rock formations, caves, or valleys naturally amplify sound. A whisper becomes a voice. A distant animal call becomes a god's roar. Cultures built shrines or ceremonial spaces in these locations because they felt enchanted. The land itself seemed to speak. Today we might bring instruments to measure frequencies, but in the ancient world, such places became sacred simply because they made the invisible world feel real. As we move gently through this reflection, a theme emerges. The mysteries of the past were rarely invented. They were observed, honestly, earnestly, by people trying to make sense of a world that often felt larger than life. What we now decode through physics and geology, they interpreted through myth and reverence. There is beauty in that misunderstanding, not ignorance, but an attempt to translate Earth's language into human stories. And so this chapter becomes a quiet bridge, guiding us from the realm of nature's misunderstood wonders into the next question. How much of humanity's mythology isn't fantasy at all, but memory, softened by time, reshaped by storytelling, yet still carrying the imprint of real events? Myths are often thought of as pure fantasy, tales spun to entertain or frighten. Yet beneath their colorful surface lies something far more profound. Across civilizations separated by oceans and mountains, we find recurring motifs. Floods that submerge the earth, great fires that consume cities, serpents that slither through creation stories, or heroic journeys through darkness. Could these similarities be coincidence? Or do they hint at shared human experiences echoes of real events encoded into narrative form? In this exploration, we lean into the gentle art of interpretation, considering myths not as lies, but as veiled memories, stories stretched and softened by time, yet preserving fragments of truth. The goal is to awaken a sense of wonder, allowing listeners to drift through layers of legend, as if wandering a dreamscape where past and imagination intertwine. Consider the great floods described in Mesopotamian, Indian, Greek, and Native American stories. To a modern mind, the repetition may seem remarkable, almost uncanny. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of localized catastrophic floods in several of these regions, events that would have been devastating to early societies. When communities survived and rebuilt, they carried the memory of disaster through oral traditions, which over generations became mythic. The watery destruction becomes a narrative, transforming fear and loss into symbols of rebirth, divine will, and human resilience. These myths, while embellished, are grounded in a reality that can still be traced through sediment layers, pottery shards, and oral continuity. Volcanic eruptions offer another window into myth as memory. Tales of fire raining from the sky, mountains that breathe smoke, or gods descending in anger may not be pure invention. The eruption of Thera, for example, devastated Minoan civilization and may have inspired stories of cataclysmic fire and divine punishment in later Greek myths. Similarly, distant cultures describe sky fire or burning mountains in ways that parallel volcanic phenomena. The connection between natural catastrophe and mythic interpretation is subtle but persistent, illustrating how humans encode trauma into story. Over time, the raw facts transform into allegory, leaving a narrative imprint rather than a scientific report. Migration and societal upheaval also find reflection in myth. Legends of Exodus, wandering peoples, or lost homelands may echo real movements of populations driven by famine, climate change, or conquest. In these stories, the struggle of ancestors is universalized, often becoming a moral or spiritual lesson rather than a historical account. Yet buried within are hints of actual journeys and displacements, carried through generations as cautionary tales, celebrations of endurance, or symbolic mapping of identity. Myths, then, serve as memory keepers, encoding survival and adaptation as timeless narrative threads. Even seemingly fantastical creatures or beings can be interpreted as echoes of real encounters or symbolic memory. Dragons, serpents, and giants appear worldwide, often linked to natural phenomena or dangerous animals. Could they be memories of extinct creatures, exaggerated descriptions of real wildlife, or personifications of environmental danger? In this way, myth preserves human awareness of hazards and survival strategies, transforming tangible experience into allegorical form. By understanding myths as mnemonic tools, we see how societies translated uncertainty into stories, both captivating and instructive. The poetic quality of myths is key to their endurance. Their vivid imagery, moral undertones, and emotional resonance ensure they survive where mere facts might fade. They are living fossils, adapting to language, culture, and context while retaining the core imprint of collective human experience. The myths that endure longest are often those that bridge the gap between memory and imagination, fact and narrative, reality and the dreamlike interpretation of events that cannot be fully understood. As we reflect on these echoes, it becomes clear that the line between myth and history is rarely absolute. In many ways, myths are repositories of humanity's earliest observations, storing in narrative form what could not yet be scientifically explained. The challenge is learning to read these stories gently, listening for whispers of truth beneath layers of embellishment, understanding that what may appear as fiction is often memory refracted through the lens of time. And so, as we move forward from this contemplation, we are prepared to encounter physical evidence, artifacts and objects that, like myths, defy easy explanation. These are the remnants of human ingenuity and ritual, tangible traces of experiences that may have inspired the very legends we have just explored. In that transition, the journey from memory to material begins, continuing our quiet exploration of the forbidden mysteries the ancients left behind. Objects have always carried stories, silent witnesses to the lives and minds of those who created them. In many cases, these artifacts are ordinary in appearance: a carved stone, a small figurine, a tool. But their context, craftsmanship, or inexplicable function transforms them into enduring mysteries. Across the ancient world, countless items have been discovered that resist easy classification, defying the expectations of their time and leaving historians and archaeologists pondering their purpose. Some appear astonishingly advanced, demonstrating precision or knowledge seemingly beyond what conventional timelines suggest, while others are baffling in their simplicity, embodying abstract symbolism that modern eyes struggle to interpret. As we examine these objects, we enter a space between familiarity and the unknown, where human curiosity is gently coaxed into wonder rather than alarm. Consider, for instance, intricately carved metal objects that predate known metallurgical techniques. To us, the methods for shaping and joining such metals seem straightforward. Yet in the hands of ancient artisans, the same processes were laborious, meticulous, and remarkable in their precision. These items, tools, ceremonial objects, or ornamental pieces, invite questions about the ingenuity of the people who made them. How did they achieve such accuracy without the aid of modern instruments? Did they rely on observational knowledge passed down for generations? Or might there be techniques lost to time? The answers remain elusive, and the mystery is amplified by the silence of history. There are no instruction manuals, no contemporary accounts, only the object itself, waiting patiently for interpretation. Some artifacts seem almost intentionally enigmatic, as if designed to obscure their function. Small carved stones with holes of irregular size, intricate mechanisms made of bronze whose moving parts no longer operate, and objects resembling celestial models challenge our assumptions. Are they tools, toys, teaching instruments, or ritual devices? Scholars have proposed countless explanations, each plausible yet never entirely verifiable. In these gaps between hypothesis and certainty, our fascination grows. The objects act as bridges between the ancient mind and our modern curiosity, inviting us to imagine the lives, intentions, and beliefs of those who made them. Other mysterious artifacts carry symbolic or spiritual significance, their forms entwined with cultural meaning we can only partially decode. Figurines depicting humanoid forms with unusual proportions, amulets etched with geometric patterns, or ceremonial vessels shaped in ways that suggest cosmological knowledge point to societies that viewed the world through lenses both practical and mystical. The juxtaposition of daily utility and symbolic abstraction reminds us that ancient people did not divide the sacred and the mundane as sharply as we often do. To touch or witness these objects today is to glimpse that continuity, the interweaving of human need, imagination, and reverence. Even objects that seem familiar, like pottery, can surprise us with subtle sophistication. Some vessels exhibit an understanding of thermodynamics in their shapes, while others contain residues that hint at chemical knowledge, fermentation techniques, or ritual usage beyond what we might expect for their era. These small details, almost imperceptible at first glance, reveal layers of expertise that challenge assumptions about the linear progression of knowledge. History, it seems, is less a ladder than a web, with threads of understanding appearing, disappearing, and occasionally resurfacing in forms that astonish later generations. There's also the matter of out-of-place objects found in contexts that defy chronology or geographic expectation. Tools, coins, or artifacts whose design or material seems to belong to a different era or civilization spark debate and inspire wonder. Are these anomalies the result of trade, migration, or simple misdating? Or might they represent lost chapters of human innovation, wiped from record by catastrophe or neglect? The lack of conclusive answers deepens the sense of mystery, drawing us gently into reflection on the fragility of human memory and the ephemeral nature of cultural transmission. Ultimately, these objects teach us to look closely, to listen attentively, and to approach history with humility. They do not always yield their secrets, and yet their presence is a quiet insistence. The human beings, across time and space, have constantly reached beyond what they know, experimenting, creating, and imagining. Each artifact is a puzzle, a whisper from the past, urging us to question our assumptions and recognize the layers of knowledge, ritual, and artistry embedded in even the smallest piece of evidence. As we leave behind these physical remnants, our path leads naturally to the secretive practices and hidden knowledge of ancient societies, where objects were not merely tools but vessels of initiation, meaning, and power. The journey moves from the tangible to the intangible, from the crafted artifact to the carefully guarded rituals that surrounded them, continuing our serene exploration of mysteries long concealed from common eyes. Across human history, knowledge has rarely been equally shared. In countless societies, certain wisdom, whether practical, spiritual, or scientific, was deliberately reserved for a select few. Initiates, elders, or priestly classes often held secrets that could alter perception, influence power, or maintain societal balance. These were not merely stories told in whispers. They were systems of understanding encoded in ritual, symbolism, and careful instruction. The information was guarded, partially to protect the community from misuse, partially to preserve its significance. As we enter this quiet exploration, we focus on these hidden practices, not with the aim of exposing them in sensational terms, but to appreciate the subtle, deliberate ways humans have managed the boundary between known and unknown. Many ancient mystery traditions operated like living libraries. The knowledge was transmitted orally through symbolic acts or via encrypted signs in sacred spaces. Initiation was not casual. It was a structured journey, often requiring years of observation, meditation, or apprenticeship. Each stage revealed only what the initiate was ready to understand, gradually expanding their perception of the natural and spiritual worlds. This method of carefully gated learning ensured that the mysteries retained their potency, reinforcing the sense that some truths are profound enough to demand patience and respect. To the uninitiated, the practices might appear arbitrary or even superstitious, but within the system, every detail had significance. Every ritual served a purpose, and every symbol was a gateway to deeper understanding. Secrecy often served as protection. Knowledge of astronomy, medicinal plants, or the cycles of nature could be powerful. In the wrong hands, potentially dangerous. For example, understanding which herbs could heal or harm was guarded, as was awareness of celestial events that influenced agricultural planning or ritual timing. Hidden knowledge also reinforced social cohesion. Those who possessed it were entrusted with leadership, teaching, and maintaining harmony. Mystery schools, secret societies, and initiation cults existed across continents and millennia, from the Eleusinian mysteries in Greece to shamanic circles in the Americas, from Egyptian priesthoods to remote monastic orders in Asia. Despite vast geographic distances, a recurring pattern emerges. Secrecy was a tool to cultivate respect for knowledge and ensure it was applied with care. Ritual played a central role in this preservation. Ceremonies, often performed in carefully controlled settings such as temples, caves, or secluded groves, acted as vessels of transmission. They encoded knowledge in dramatic, memorable forms. Chants, dances, symbolic offerings, and movements that mirrored celestial patterns or natural cycles. Initiates learned not just through words, but through embodiment, experiencing concepts physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The repetition of ritual created memory anchors, linking practical wisdom to profound personal experience. In this way, secret knowledge became inseparable from lived reality, a subtle interplay of mind, body, and spirit that ensured understanding endured across generations. Symbols, too, carried layered meanings. A simple geometric shape, a recurring animal motif, or the placement of an object could encode instruction comprehensible only to those trained to read it. To the uninitiated, such symbols might seem decorative or arbitrary. To the initiated, they were maps of the universe, keys to understanding human consciousness, or guides to navigating both physical and spiritual landscapes. Over centuries, some symbols lost their original context, becoming enigmatic art or curiosities, yet traces of their intended meaning remain. These fragments tantalize modern scholars and seekers alike, hinting at knowledge once guarded jealously but now partially accessible through careful study. The duality of hidden knowledge, the known to a few and hidden from many, creates a tension that continues to captivate us. It is a contrast between the mundane and the sublime, between what is visible and what is deliberately obscured. Exploring these practices invites reflection on the very nature of learning and understanding. The ancients recognized that not all truths can be rushed or taken lightly. Some require patience, reverence, and initiation into the rhythm of the world itself. As we move forward from this contemplation of hidden knowledge, the next step draws us into the aftermath. How traces of these forbidden practices survived, transforming into legends, encoded myths, and cryptic records that still linger in remote manuscripts, ruined temples, and oral traditions. This is a gentle descent from initiation to legacy, tracing the quiet fingerprints of secret wisdom across centuries, guiding us toward the final reflections on humanity's enduring fascination with what must remain just beyond reach. History is not only written in grand monuments or celebrated battles. It is etched subtly in the remnants of cultures, in the whispers of manuscripts, and the quiet persistence of stories passed through generations. As civilizations rose and fell, much of their secret knowledge, rituals, and mysteries were intentionally obscured, lost, or deliberately destroyed. Fires consumed libraries, conquerors dismantled temples, and oral traditions faded as society shifted. Yet, remarkably, fragments endured, small pieces of what was once forbidden, carefully concealed or encoded so that they might survive long enough to reach curious eyes centuries later. These traces are like faint echoes across time, suggesting a larger picture that is tantalizingly incomplete but profoundly compelling. In this section, we explore how the hidden, the forbidden, and the enigmatic persisted, shaping the way modern humanity glimpses ancient mysteries. Some of the most enduring legacies are written records that survived against the odds. Manuscripts from remote monasteries, scrolls buried in desert sands, and codices locked away in secret archives provide a window into the ways humans sought to preserve sacred and practical knowledge. Often, the texts themselves are cryptic, filled with symbolism, metaphors, or deliberate obfuscation intended to protect their content from those deemed unworthy or unprepared. Modern scholars labor to decipher these layers, slowly unveiling glimpses of practices, philosophies, or technical understanding that challenge conventional historical narratives. In every faded line or carefully inked illustration lies the tension between revelation and concealment, reminding us that knowledge has always been precious and perilous. Oral traditions, too, have proven resilient, carrying fragments of forbidden knowledge across continents and centuries. Stories of secret rites, magical practices, or esoteric wisdom persist in folk tales, ceremonial chants, and myths passed from elder to youth. Though details shift over time, the underlying themes of hidden power, forbidden insight, and the human quest for understanding remain consistent. These oral traces bridge the gap between ancient civilizations and the present, providing insight into societies whose written records may have been destroyed or never existed. In listening closely, we can trace patterns of thought and belief, discovering that even when explicit knowledge vanished, its essence endured through narrative and memory. Material remnants, Artifacts, architectural alignments, and ceremonial objects also offer subtle proof of forbidden practices. Temples oriented to celestial events, hidden chambers, or intricately designed artifacts suggest an advanced understanding of the world paired with deliberate secrecy. These remnants are more than curiosities. They are evidence that knowledge was valued, protected, and, at times, deliberately obscured. The deliberate placement or crafting of these items often implies ritual significance or encoded instruction, suggesting that the ancients understood the profound interplay between physical form and hidden meaning. Even in decay, these objects speak softly, hinting at truths that were once alive with purpose and reverence. The persistence of forbidden knowledge also invites reflection on human curiosity itself. Throughout history, individuals and communities have been drawn irresistibly to what is hidden, seeking to uncover truths that might reshape understanding or confer insight. This duality between concealment and discovery creates a tension that continues to captivate us today. It suggests that the allure of forbidden knowledge is not merely about secrecy, but about the human desire to reconcile the known and the unknown, the visible and the hidden. In a sense, the survival of these mysteries is testament to our enduring need to question, explore, and imagine. As we draw this journey toward its final reflection, the scattered remnants of forbidden knowledge, whether preserved in text, story, or artifact, coalesce into a mosaic of human experience. They reveal societies deeply aware of the fragility of insight, the power of secrecy, and the reverence owed to wisdom. Though we may never uncover every secret, the echoes that remain inspire wonder, provoke thought, and offer a serene reminder of humanity's timeless quest to explore what lies just beyond reach. In this quiet persistence of mystery, we find the enduring beauty of history itself, a space where the known and unknown meet, softly illuminating the shadows of the past. As we arrive at the final chapter of this journey, it is fitting to pause, to take a slow, deliberate breath, and to reflect on the vast tapestry we have traced together, a tapestry woven from countless threads of history, myth, natural phenomena, artifacts, and secret knowledge. Each element we have encountered has contributed to a broader understanding of the ancient world, a world often imagined as distant, opaque, or inaccessible, yet now revealed as remarkably intimate, deeply human, and astonishingly interconnected. In the quiet unfolding of these stories, we begin to see how civilizations, separated by time, geography, and culture, all grappled with the same essential mysteries. The movement of the stars, the cycles of life and death, the hidden forces that shape existence, and the delicate balance between light and darkness, the known and the unknown. The ancient world was a place of contrasts, where the ordinary and the extraordinary existed side by side. To the untrained eye, it may have appeared chaotic, yet upon closer inspection, a careful pattern emerges. Myths were not merely fanciful tales, but encoded wisdom. Artifacts were not merely tools or decorations, but vessels of insight. Rituals were not mere performance, but structured journeys into understanding. Each civilization, in its own way, recognized that knowledge carries weight. There are things that can be seen, things that can be taught openly, and things that must be approached with reverence, patience, and preparation. This deliberate structuring of access to wisdom is one of the most enduring legacies of the ancients, a lesson that transcends the boundaries of time. Human fascination with the forbidden is not born from idle fear, nor is it merely the thrill of secrecy. It is an instinctive recognition that some knowledge is transformative, capable of reshaping perception, altering understanding, and even redefining what it means to live in harmony with the world. Ancient societies understood this instinctively. They recognized that the reckless dissemination of certain insights, whether practical, spiritual, or philosophical, could be destabilizing, even dangerous. Knowledge, they understood, is a tool, and like all tools, it can be wielded with care or with harm. By carefully structuring the transmission of wisdom through initiation, ritual, or symbolic encoding, they ensured that those who were ready could access it responsibly, while protecting both the individual and the broader community from misuse. Initiation, in its many forms, was not a trivial ceremony. It was a carefully calibrated journey, often extending over years, during which the student gradually expanded their perception of the natural, spiritual, and metaphysical worlds. Each step revealed only as much as the initiate could absorb and comprehend. This gradual unfolding mirrors the rhythms of life itself. Knowledge is not instantaneous, nor is understanding ever fully complete. It is acquired slowly, refined over time, and reinforced by practice, reflection, and lived experience. The ancient systems of secrecy, then, were not mechanisms of exclusion for their own sake. They were acknowledgments of the depth, responsibility, and reverence that true insight demands. When we look back across the centuries, we can see how these practices left traces that endure in subtle, often overlooked ways. Manuscripts, some locked away in remote monasteries or hidden archives, bear cryptic inscriptions, diagrams, or layered meanings that challenge the modern mind. The texts themselves are rarely straightforward. Their wisdom is embedded in symbolism, metaphor, or encoded instruction. The task of deciphering them requires not only scholarship, but patience, intuition, and an awareness that meaning is layered, often deliberately obscured. Each successful interpretation is like opening a window into the mindset of the ancients, revealing not only what they knew, but how they thought about knowledge, secrecy, and the sacred. Oral traditions complement these written legacies. Across continents, stories have persisted through the careful stewardship of elders, shamans, and custodians of culture. These narratives carry echoes of forbidden knowledge, often embedded in myth, song, or ritual performance. Details shift over time, but the underlying principles, the patterns of understanding, the emphasis on ethical application, the intertwining of practical and spiritual guidance, remain intact. In listening to these oral fragments, we are invited to reconstruct, at least in part, the worldview of societies whose written records may have been lost or destroyed. It is a quiet, intimate form of discovery, one that requires patience and imagination, a willingness to let the mind drift gently between the lines of what is said and what is left unsaid. Artifacts, too, speak in a language that transcends words. They are silent witnesses, carefully crafted by hands that understood both utility and symbolism. Temples aligned with the stars, objects etched with geometric precision, ceremonial tools of extraordinary craftsmanship. All of these remnants hint at knowledge that was deliberately protected, yet meant to endure. Some artifacts demonstrate technical mastery that modern understanding struggles to replicate. Others encode philosophical or spiritual concepts within their forms. Even when their original context is partially lost, these objects retain a quiet power, inviting speculation, reflection, and awe. They are bridges across time, tangible links to human ingenuity and imagination, and evidence that the ancients were acutely aware of the potency of their creations. The tension between concealment and revelation is central to the allure of forbidden knowledge. To encounter something deliberately hidden is to confront the duality of human curiosity, the pull toward illumination balanced by respect for what is not yet fully understood. This tension is not merely narrative flourish. It is a mirror of our own cognitive and emotional processes. The very act of pondering mysteries, of allowing unanswered questions to linger, stimulates reflection, deepens awareness, and heightens our appreciation for the subtle complexities of the past. In this sense, the forbidden is not an obstacle to understanding. It is a catalyst, a gentle guide that encourages careful observation, contemplation, and the cultivation of wonder. The persistence of these mysteries also teaches us about the cyclical nature of human knowledge. Knowledge is acquired, refined, sometimes lost, and occasionally rediscovered. Civilizations have risen and fallen, yet the underlying patterns of inquiry, observation and reflection persist. When one chapter ends, another begins, carrying echoes of previous insights. In this ongoing cycle, the forbidden is never truly lost. It is suspended, waiting for the right moment, the prepared mind, or the attentive observer to bring it once more into the light. Understanding this rhythm allows us to appreciate history not as a linear progression, but as a delicate interplay between revelation and concealment, memory and forgetfulness, insight and mystery. As we contemplate these truths, it becomes evident that the greatest lesson of the forbidden mysteries is not the acquisition of answers, but the cultivation of perspective. The ancients teach us that understanding is not a fixed endpoint, but a journey. It is about learning to dwell comfortably with uncertainty, to recognize the limits of our perception, and to honor the process of discovery itself. Knowledge is most profound when approached with patience, humility, and reverence. By embracing the interplay between what is known and what is hidden, we connect with a deeper human tradition, one that values observation, imagination, and the careful stewardship of insight. This reflection naturally extends to our own lives. Even now, the same principles apply. The pursuit of knowledge, whether scientific, philosophical, or spiritual, is enriched by awareness of the mysteries that lie beyond immediate understanding. The forbidden is not merely a relic of ancient civilizations. It is a lens through which we can view our contemporary search for meaning. By honoring what is hidden, respecting the depth of insight encoded in ritual, artifact, and story, and approaching the unknown with patience and wonder, we continue the legacy of those who came before. We become participants in a lineage of seekers, explorers of both the tangible and intangible, navigating the delicate boundary between certainty and mystery. In the quiet moments that follow reflection, when the day fades and the world softens into night, the echoes of the past become more tangible. The myths, artifacts, and secret practices we have explored linger not as puzzles demanding immediate solutions, but as companions to thought, gentle reminders of humanity's enduring curiosity. They invite us to slow our pace, to listen more attentively, and to allow the imagination to roam through time, across civilizations, and into spaces where knowledge and mystery intertwine. This is the enduring gift of the forbidden. It transforms the act of learning into an experience, a quiet meditation on the breadth of human ingenuity, resilience, and wonder. Ultimately, the ancient mysteries we have traced are less about resolution than about resonance. They remind us that human curiosity is timeless, that the search for understanding spans generations, and that the balance between revelation and concealment is a fundamental part of what it means to be human. The forbidden is not merely hidden. It is a living invitation, urging us to approach history, myth, and the enigmatic with patience, reverence, and a sense of awe. In honoring these mysteries, we honor the continuity of human thought, the persistence of wonder, and the quiet, persistent search for understanding that stretches across the centuries. And so, as we draw the journey to a close, we leave the past not as a series of solved riddles, but as a living landscape of questions, reflections, and whispers from those who came before. In the space between knowledge and imagination, between the visible and the hidden, we find a profound serenity, a calm recognition that the quest itself, guided by curiosity and tempered by reverence, is the true legacy of human civilization. The forbidden, the secret, and the mysterious are no longer distant. They are companions in thought, gentle guides in reflection, and enduring beacons for all who seek to explore the delicate, infinite interplay between history, mystery, and the human spirit.